Every single day, I see multiple rumors having to do with XRP and the XRP ecosystem, and I ignore almost 100% of them because most of them very clearly are made up nonsense from people trying to get attention on the web or nets. Typing stupid things with their fat little fingers. Like, that is what's happening. I recognize that. And so I tend to ignore them. Now, even if there's something that's stupid, S-T-O-O-P-I-D, stupid, having to do with XRP and it's a rumor, if it's circulated enough, it gets to the point where I feel like, okay, this has been seen millions of times, I can't reasonably ignore this any further, then I will comment on the matter and rip it to shreds. Now, in this particular case, I will acknowledge that the type of thing spouted here as a rumor, just to be clear, what I'm about to share with you in this video, it is allegedly secret plans from Ripple that have been leaked, accidentally leaked here. That's what this is. I will acknowledge that what is put forth here is not remotely crazy. The vast majority of the rumors that are out there that get heavy circulation, just wild and ridiculous and not even close to being grounded in reality. This one's a little bit different in that it does seem to be pretty safely, pretty closely grounded in reality, if indeed true. Like, I could see how it could be true. Now, is this true? Hell if I know, but I will say this. We do get to that point yet again where it's just been seen and discussed too many times for me as a content creator in the XRP community to just ignore it. I don't know how many times this story has been seen in recent days, but it has to be in the millions at this point. Because like you're seeing individual accounts, some of them even like not that big of an accounts, but still getting over 100,000 views like per post. And I'm just sitting like, okay, well, let's talk about this. So now I will say, even if this specifically isn't true and this is actually some sort of fabrication, this is the type of thing that you should expect to unfold in crypto, and certainly specifically within XRP and the XRP ecosystem. This is it's plausible at the bare minimum here. But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice. And you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. All right, so here's the headline from the Crypto Basic, one of many crypto media outlets that has covered this story. Piece titled, Rumors Suggest Ripple Working with Swiss Bank on Tokenization Using XRP. Although, as you'll see as we go through this article, it's actually a lot more than that. It also has to do with KYC, ID verification, and some of this is actually possible because of changes that have come to the XRP ledger not too far into the past, actually. Anyway, piece reads as follows. Fresh speculation has emerged suggesting Ripple and a Swiss bank are exploring digital ID, compliance, and tokenization solutions using XRP. And I will just say this. Ripple engaging in anything utilizing the XRP that would be in the realm of compliance and tokenization, definitely not rumor. And because they publicly articulated that. On the digital ID side, the reason that's not crazy is, as you'll see a little bit later in the video, like the XRP ledger can do some of that stuff right now. So I don't know that Ripple has explicitly said too much, even in general, about that aspect of the crypto space. None of that is crazy. Anyway, piece continues. These rumors materialized after an anonymous figure calling himself Lord Belgrave claimed to have leaked part of a confidential agreement. Belgrave, who says he once worked as a Swiss banker, shared what he described as a section of a mutual non-disclosure and strategic cooperation agreement between a major Swiss bank and an American blockchain company. This included cross-border transfers using neutral bridge assets, tokenization of regulated financial services, biometric identity integration, simulations of real-time gross settlement, and advanced liquidity channels for wholesale markets. He suggested that neutral, protocol-agnostic language pointed toward assets like XRP as a bridge. At the same time, the reference to tokenized instruments indicated large-scale products such as sovereign debt and exchange-traded funds rather than retail crypto. Okay, so here's a reason that isn't crazy to think Ripple would have interest in. I mean, they're already doing something fairly similar, public, and this is not speculation. They're doing something similar with Hidden Road, which they just bought for, what, $1.25 billion, something like that? Well, they've talked about having settlement for $3 trillion worth of real-world financial assets on the XRP ledger. $3 trillion estimated annually. That's pretty darn big. So clearly, Ripple is very interested in tokenizing real-world assets and engaging in actual foreign exchange transactions on a global scale, and doing that all on the XRP ledger. That part's not spec. That is something that is really happening. Ripple said so. So the fact that they'd be doing something that is similar in kind, in partnership with another bank, not remotely crazy. I acknowledge that. So again, I can't tell you whether or not this specifically is true. Hard to know. But given that it doesn't sound crazy at all, and it's actually I'll say this, it's probably, at least in recent memory, the least crazy rumor that's broadly circulated within the XRP community. That's how I'd characterize it. I can't think of anything that's broadly circulated recently that is less crazy sounding than this. It's just kind of like run-of-the-mill awesomeness that we know can be achieved with XRP and the XRP ledger. Pretty much. Anyway, Peace continues. He also highlighted references to multi-layered liquidity corridors, which he says relate to the linking of fiat networks, tokenized securities, central bank digital currencies, and neutral assets under a single global framework. According to him, the agreement presented a foundation for tokenized capital markets on a global scale. Now, if this is true, and this is the direction that they're going, and they're going at it this hard in the paint, this is the type of thing that absolutely will help to ensure XRP and the XRP ledger are long-term viable. This is one of the most obvious things that should be done, is tokenizing everything on the freaking planet that you can on the XRP ledger and getting broad adoption early on. And the XRP ledger is among the first to even be doing this. You know, even I mentioned it came for a separate reason. In my very last video, I mentioned that, you know, even at literally 10 years ago, gold was being tokenized on the XRP ledger. So like, XRP ledger has always been great for this. But you're only going to have so many blockchains that are adopted for this use case. You don't need an infinite amount of blockchains where you're tokenizing just about every financial type of asset, every type of financial asset there is onto it. Like, you don't need that. You don't need like an infinite amount of places to do that. But there will be X number of locations where, you know, there's real world adoption that's meaningful. And so basically, the first movers in the space, with the XRP ledger being one of them, those will be the ones that are likely to win. And given that XRP ledger is so perfectly suited for this, it does make sense to believe that there's a very good chance XRP will continue to have long-term dominance, actually. So it is important to proceed with this in a very meaningful way. And we have seen this. We have seen, you know, we've seen money market funds tokenized on the XRP ledger. Recently, we've seen T-bills tokenized on the XRP ledger. Bitcoin's tokenized on the XRP ledger because that piece of shit network is too slow. It's the worst blockchain that's ever been created because it was the first. And so XRP ledger fixes it. It makes it possible to do things with Bitcoin that you can't on layer 1. You can so even though the XRP ledger is also a layer 1 technology, you can treat it as though it's a layer 2 technology, and then you can move Bitcoin as fast as XRP moves. The problem's already solved there. And it's fantastic, and you love to see it. So that helps to ensure the long-term viability of Bitcoin and vice versa. So also, like this, what I'm saying is this stuff has already happened. We just want to see more of this. But if you're wondering why would this even be a big deal, that's it in a nutshell. Because the more utility you get from the XRP ledger, which is what this is, the more obvious it is that it's here to stay. And so then even people who come in, like people like myself, for example, and I'm sure it'd be the vast majority of you also, who just want to diversify and get broad exposure to the crypto asset class, more people like us will be interested in coming in as years and decades pass, investing our hard-earned money into it because it's used. Because if it's being used, it's probably not going to cease to exist, which means it's probably, long-term speaking, not a bad investment. I think tons of people are going to look at it like that. It just seems obvious to me. Anyway, Peace continues. Belgrave said the full agreement also covered governance, liability, and jurisdictional issues. However, he claimed he would only release parts of it gradually for personal safety. Okay, this is the part where you start to lose me. Because if you're putting out super duper top secret information, but you're doing it in stages, that screams to me you're doing it for engagement. Because if you just want to get this information out there, and you're willing to break all these confidentiality, all these signed agreements, if you're already comfortable doing that, first of all, you shouldn't be doing that. That is kind of douchey, to be honest with you. But if you're going to be doing that and you just want to get it out, and it's for the benefit of the XRP community, I got to tell you, releasing part now and more a week later or a month later or whatever the time frame is, isn't going to make you less culpable. It's not going to make it so that you did something less illegal or less bad. Just to be super duper clear here, it doesn't matter. It's not like if you post something a month into the future, we can't then tie it back to the post that you made a week or a month ago, whatever. Like, obviously, this is all going to be tied together, so that doesn't make logical sense. This screams to me, this person is doing this for engagement purposes. So if it is true, then it is true. This is weird, though, and does not make logical sense. Anyway, Peace continues. He argued that Ripple's role in these projects went beyond remittance use cases. The anonymous commentator described it as an effort to build an institutional-grade settlement system. He claimed the regulators had reviewed the document and that other bankers had seen similar material. Expectedly, the claims quickly spread through the XRP community, with some linking the deal to institutions like JP Morgan and BlackRock, of course. Belgrave suggested that the project combined biometric identity, tokenized asset settlement, and bridge technologies like the XRP ledger. Still, none of the companies he named have confirmed any involvement, and no official evidence has surfaced. Interestingly, industry context actually overlaps with some of these suggestions. For example, JP Morgan has publicly called digital identity a major piece of Web3, calling for more secure and efficient verification methods. Okay, that's obviously true. That's one thing where JP Morgan obviously is correct, because Web3 is just a decentralized version of Web2, which is the internet that we effectively have right now in its current iteration, where we have social media and people can post this and that, whereas Web 1.0 is broadly considered to be just the original internet where you're reading stuff but not as much posting, because, I mean, yeah, you could upload websites, but there wasn't really a whole bunch of in-depth social media interface. That wasn't really until the 2000s. And so now we're in Web 3, but in this decentralized world where you're not so much going to be having necessarily some sort of central authority telling you what you can and can't post, what you can and can't do. In that instance, if you don't have a way of having an identity and to prove who you are, well, that's more on the social media side, but there is utility there to be able to prove who you are, because there are going to be people who only want to have conversations with people who are actually verifiable. That'll just be an option. But then also when it comes to financial transactions, so on and so forth, well, if we're going to be using this new decentralized technology, I don't see that the government is going to anytime soon, if ever, stop caring about KYC and AML requirements and that compliance. So you better find a way to implement it, which is what's happening here, basically. Anyway, Peace continues. Meanwhile, Ripple has also been pushing deeper into compliance-driven projects and mainstream finance. In July 2025, the company applied for a U.S. national bank charter with the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency and a Federal Reserve master account to support its RLUSD stablecoin. In addition, Ripple has promoted custody solutions and tokenization, projecting that tokenized real-world assets could reach $19 trillion by 2033. The firm also acquired Medico in May 2023 to push into the custody industry. And furthermore, the XRP ledger has steadily advanced its digital identity features. In October 2024, validators approved the XLS40 Decentralized Identifier Amendment, introducing self-sovereign digital IDs for KYC and AML compliance. Earlier this year, a Ripple X engineer announced the credentials feature, which would allow lightweight verification for institutions while preserving privacy. Okay, so in terms of, is this something that would make sense for XRP and the XRP ecosystem? Unquestionably, yes. I absolutely acknowledge that. Is this true? I don't know. Is this type of thing certainly happening behind the scenes? Well, yeah, I mean, certain elements of this are actually publicly known, not this specific rumor, but these types of things, we know they're happening. So this is not exactly a stretch to think that this specifically might be true. It's one claim from one person on the internet. So I don't know what you're going to do with that, but I felt like I had to address it in either way. I'll just say, even if this specific instance isn't true, these things are already happening. The XRP ledger is perfectly positioned to be a major component of this new world of finance. Perfectly, unquestionably, that's the case. So there's still